Hey everyone, and welcome back to my weekly Game of Thrones recap video. This was an episode that I've been waiting for a very long time, as I'm sure most of you have been, because Joffrey got married! Isn't that so exciting? But anyway, it starts out with a reek scene, and as I mentioned last week, the reek scenes are really, really rough for me. This one obviously wasn't as bad. Theon was just kind of running behind Ramsay, limping and being like a pet, basically, which is what Reek really is, if you think about it. But, Ramsay and a lady friend in the book, the girl he was supposed to go hunting with, I think was a Hornwood. But they are hunting ladies. Well, specifically this one lady, but they're chasing after her with a bow and arrow. I'd be like, hey, you win if you get out of the woods, but we're gonna kill you first, so you're gonna lose. And then they kill her, and he lets the dogs eat her, and it's not a good thing. The reek scenes are just Ramsay Bolton is just okay, people hate the Lannisters, and with good reason. The Lannisters are a bunch of douches, but the Boltons are even worse because there's nobody who's remotely redeemable in the Bolton family. Tyrion's a decent guy, he's not always the best, and he is a Lannister, but he does good things. He's not nearly as awful as his sister, and Jaime's really turning himself around too. So being a Lannister isn't quite as awful as it once was, I suppose, but being a Bolton is just, I think I'd rather be shot with an arrow than be a Bolton. Well, maybe not necessarily, because then I'd be, dead and stuff, but either way, the Boltons blow, okay? Let's just go with that. And then we go to a lovely little scene with Jaime and Tyrion bonding, and it just makes me squeal a little on the inside, because it's just so cute. And then, we go back to the Boltons, and Roose comes home, and he's all like, Ramsay, where's Theon? And Ramsay's like, here he is. And he's like, dude, you flayed him. And he's like, well, duh, that's what we do. We're Boltons. And then he's like, well, his dad is the ruler of the Iron Islands. We needed a hostage. You screwed us over, kid. Why do I trust you so much? I should never give you positions of power. And Ramsay's like, dude, he's great. He's loyal to us. He's not going to do a darn thing. And to prove his point, he has Reek shave him, and while he's shaving him, he has Reek proceed to tell his father that, in fact, the Stark boys are not dead, but they have escaped, perhaps to go find their brother Jon Snow at the Wall. Who knows? And then he's like, oh, hey, by the way, Reek, Ramsay, not Roose, guess what? My dad just killed Robb Stark. And as he's saying this, he's got, the razor, right here on his neck. And he's proving, that he's not going to kill him for things that he would have killed him for before. And you can tell that, he's really fighting it. He's so upset, and my heart just broke. Theon has pulled some dick moves in the past, but I feel terrible for him. Roose is like, oh, well, you proved your point. And guess what? I will legitimize you if you take him to Moat Kylan and take the moat from, the Ironmen who are occupying it. Since we can't use him as a hostage anymore, maybe he can be valuable anyway. And Ramsay's like, heck yeah, Dad, I want to be a real Bolton. Let's go! What some kids will do for a father's love. Daddy issues, party of Ramsay Bolton. And then we get to go to King's Landing, where Lord Varys is like, hey, guess what? Your sister knows about your horse, so you better be careful. And then they go to breakfast. Well, Varys doesn't, because he's foreign, and he's not allowed to go. But they're giving presents to Joffrey for his wedding, and he's a little upset when Tyrion gives him a book. But then Tywin gives him the other Valyrian steel sword that has been forged from ice. And, Sansa can kind of tell something's up, and she's all like, ugh. And then Joffrey has the gall. Of course he's got the gall, he's the king. But he's like, oh, every time I use it, I will think of chopping Ned Stark's head off. And then Sansa's just like, again on the inside, because she can't act like that on the outside. Sansa is a lady. She's not Arya, who sadly was not in this episode at all. Do you know how much that bums me out? Arya is my favorite character, and the fact that she wasn't there at all was just very, very sad, especially after all the fun bonding she and the Hound had last week. So then, Shay is summoned to Tyrion's chambers, and she's like, hey, we're having a little afternoon delight, right? And then Tyrion's like, absolutely not. I'm married. I need to keep my vows to my wife. You are going on a ship and you're going to Pentos. You'll have a house and you'll have servants, but you need to leave. And she's like, but I like you, we are together. And he's like, dude, you're a whore. And she's like, but I can have your kids. He's like, I can't have kids with a whore. And he's like screaming at her. And she just starts crying and crying because, I would do the same thing, if I was in Shay's situation because, I cry over everything anyway, but I'd just be like a big blubbering mess. And then he's like, well, Bronn's going to come take you down to the boat, and you're going to get on it. And Bronn comes in, and he smacks her around a little bit for good measure, to prove that they're serious. And he leaves with her. And then we go to Dragonstone, where, once again, Melisandre is burning people alive. Except, this time, she's burning the queen's brother. Her name's Celise, isn't it? Like, I always forget what the queen's name is, because she's, like, utterly forgettable. I think it's Celise, now that I think about it. Florent, yeah. Axel, that's the brother, I think. Axel Florent. I think he's the one that dies. They're not a very exciting bunch over on Dragonstone. And then Davos is like, dude, he's your brother, why did you do this? And he's like, well, I told him to get rid of his idols and he didn't do it, so, he had to burn. And Davos is just like, shaking my head, Stannis, shaking my head. Why is there not more Shireen? I love Shireen. Like, Shireen in the books is so much more exciting than Shireen on the show. Like, because she gets, like, no screen time except when they just want to point out that she, like, has a dead cheek. They need more Shireen. She livens up Dragonstone a little bit. And then Bran is all like, oh, I'm summer. I'm eating things. I'm hungry. And then he snaps out of it, and Jojen's like, dude, you're not a direwolf. Stop slipping into summer all the time, or you're going to stop remembering who we are, stop remembering your life. You're not a direwolf, and Bran should listen because, Ferb is wise. Yeah, because if you didn't know this, which you might, if you're weird and watch Disney Channel like me when you have no children and you're an adult. Jojen is Thomas Sangster, who was the kid in Love Actually, who got the girl at the end, but he also does the voice of Ferb on Phineas and Ferb. So, fun fact for the day right there. Oh, other fun fact. Alfie Allen, who plays Theon, is Lily Allen's brother. And she wrote a song about him once that is apparently about him smoking a bunch of dope. So, whatevs. Those Brits and their marijuana. And then it's time for the wedding of the century, or at least this season. Marjorie's dress, absolutely beautiful, with beautiful flowers, because she's from Highgarden. What was up with her hair? Like, okay, like, it looked kind of cute from the back, kind of, but, like, it's way too high. Like, I don't know, it was awkward for me, It was almost cute, but not. Pod, okay, like, every time I see Pod, it makes me miss Gendry so much. Like, they look a little bit alike, not, like, super alike, but a little alike. Like, enough alike that I'm just like, where is that Gendry? Because, but this is, like, super inappropriate, especially because in the books they're, like, so far apart in age. But I ship Gendria so hard. Like, it's pretty much my OTP. Where is Joe Dempsey? I need more Joe Dempsey in my life. Make this happen, HBO. And if you pay attention during the scenes of the wedding, you might see some subtle clues as to who's behind, the poisoning of Joffrey Baratheon. Because that's what happens at the end of the episode. Joffrey dies. Ding dong, the bastard's dead. Which old bastard? The bastard who is king and the product of incest. So, that's an exciting time for everyone. Not for Joffrey per se, he's like choking and gagging on wine and dies. But it's good for Westeros because Joffrey is a prick. But anyway, before this, some fun things happened, including Oberyn Martell and Loras Tyrell making eyes at each other from across, the courtyard. Brienne goes up to give her congratulations. Brienne and Marjorie talk because, they're old pals. And Cersei's like, I'm going to make you feel awkward. And then after Brienne leaves, she follows her and she's like, oh, you love my brother, don't you? And Brienne's like, I ain't denying it. Well, she didn't actually say that, but she just kind of stood there and then she was like, deuces. And I'm just like, poor Brienne. Like, after everything she's gone through, now she's gonna deal with Cersei and her jealousy and her insanity. Because, Cersei's cray, yo. Just saying. And then, there's this lovely little play with the 5 kings of Westeros as played by dwarves. Joffrey has set this up, thinking it would be hilarious. Marjorie looks absolutely disgusted. Sansa's got that look on her face like she's trying not to kill somebody, because she's a lady and she's got to have that, her still face of perfection and stuff like that. She's trying to stay cool and collected, as they're like mimicking killing her brother, and then the Joffrey dwarf takes the wolf head that was supposed to be Robb Stark's head, because in case you haven't forgotten that horrific moment, they sewed his wolf's head to his body after he was killed. And then he takes the wolf's head, he's like humping it, and then I'm just like, this is just not in good taste, everybody just keeps looking around. Like, obviously there are some people laughing, but Olenna Tyrell is just kind of like, and Tyrion's like, I'm going to kill somebody, and then Joffrey, because he doesn't like that his uncle likes to challenge him, is all like, oh, well, hey, you're not really the grand champion, dwarf Joffrey, until you take all takers. And he's like, anybody else want to go? There's like, Tyrion, hey, you, would you like to fight these dwarves? You're a dwarf. And he's like, no, I think I'm okay. And then Joffrey dumps wine on his head. And he's like, well, guess what? You're going to be my cupbearer. And then so he makes Tyrion go get him some wine. And he's sitting there, like being a jerk, like always, because he's Joffrey. And Marjorie's like, oh, yay, there's pie. I'm going to feed you some. And then Joffrey's like, the pie's dry. I need wine. And Tyrion's like, dude, take the wine. And Joffrey drinks it, and that's when he starts to die. And Marjorie's like, oh. And Cersei's like crying and sobbing in tears. And Lord Dantos comes up behind Sansa, and he's like, we have to go now. And then, Joffrey dies, pointing at Tyrion. And Cersei's like, have him arrested! Like through her tears. Anyway, that's not a direct quote, but that's the gist. Then the rest of the Kingsguard, besides Jaime, who was like kneeling over Joffrey's dead, bloody, vomity body, they go and take him into custody. And that is where our episode ends. It was a very satisfying conclusion to the wedding. We've been waiting for it for a while, and those of us who've read the books and hate Joffrey knew it was coming. We were just like, when's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? And then it happened, and it was great. Continuing to over in Martell, he's pretty awesome. He's cool in the books, but he's like way cooler on the show. I'd love to hear what you thought about the episode. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next week. Bye!